I think luck plays a humongous role in all the things that you can potentially achieve in this career. So I think luck was always on my side. Yes, you need to work hard, but a lot of things come to you if you're at the right place during the right time. And if you can let go of the fears and just say yes to everything that's being thrown at you, I think things just start opening up. But having said that, I'm also aware of the fact that I have a bunch of friends in this industry, a lot of people who are much smarter, much wiser. So I want to like make that very clear because my ego loves to hear it that I was the youngest corporate communications head. But the realist side of me also knows that a lot of silent people supported me. A lot of managers made me who I am today. And it'll be absolutely ridiculous to say that I did it all on my own.
I've seen people in this industry who start very early, want to achieve a lot of things, but when the opportunity presents itself, if they don't have the caliber, they won't be able to deliver. I think you have launched an IPO, you had comms for several companies before you even turned 30. Who helped you? What helped you? How did you overcome your own doubts, which most people have?
When I was given this opportunity to head Xiaomi comms, I was just like very underconfident. I don't know. I think there's the imposter syndrome. There's so many other complexes that come into play because I have loved public relations and corporate communications. I genuinely enjoy what I do. So I was very confident that I knew what needed to be done. It's just that I didn't know whether I would be able to lead well or head a team in the first place. Whoever is listening and watching this video should know the kind of people who exist in this industry who always offer help. And a lot of times that inhibit people from growing is because they can't ask for help. It doesn't make you any smaller, by the way. I still get goosebumps because the story is so personal and there's been like a huge journey, getting that designation, holding on to that designation, all of that. But yeah, three key points from the whole long answer that I gave you is ask for help, say yes, and most importantly, believe it. When good things are happening to you, just keep on believing that you're worth it. Don't question it and just play the game.
थ्री इडियट्स में भी जैसे दिखाए थे कि दोस्त अगर फेल हो जाए तो बुरा लगता है, लेकिन दोस्त अगर टॉप हो जाए तो बहुत बुरा लगता है. How did your friends react to it? And I'm sure, behind everyone's back, people talk about them and they say nasty things.
You get to hear a lot of other things. Huh? By the way, let me just then tell you that it's not just like you're good in the good books of the bosses. Very, very problematic things can be said about you. I think that's one of the learnings that comes with you being in the leadership position. You go back to the friendships, you go back to the people who supported you before you held any title or tag. That's the game changer because they know the core of you. Go back to industry peers. That's what I keep on seeking help, discuss about things with people. You have so many forums, but you should have mentors. If you've not built mentors, you're not doing yourself a favor.
Welcome to the show Indian Media with Dhiren and Experts. I am your host Dhiren. Today's show is very special because I have my dear friend Kasturi Paladi with me, who has several achievements to her name. She has been the youngest Corpcom leader in the country. Plus, she has also led IPO communications for a listed entity. And it's so great to have you, Kasturi, on this show. Welcome to this podcast. I'm sure the listeners will have a lot to learn from such a young leader. So, but before we begin, I invite you to tell us some of the key achievements of your career.
Thank you so much, Dhiren. It's an honor to be on the show. I have honestly been following it like no one's business, and I've been seeing all the videos because I feel very privileged to be invited, to be honest, because all the people that you've been speaking to are just like veterans in the industry, and I don't think I deserve this platform. But yes, I'm your friend, so I'm going to take this as something that I potentially got lucky with, and I'm going to accept it with my 100%. And thank you so much for having me on the show. Achievements. Okay, I don't want to sound like I'm blowing my own trumpet, but yes, you're right. I think I was one of, it's not verified data, but I think I probably might be uh, one of the lucky ones who got an opportunity to head communications for a major consumer tech brand in the country at a very, very young age. Achievements otherwise is that I've been in this industry for about 10, more than a decade now, I think. And I think just a lot of opportunities have continued to come in front of me, and I have just taken those opportunities as well to be able to learn a lot. And so, till about 2 months back, I was the associate vice president for Protean eGov Technologies, which was previously known as NSDL eGov. For the listeners who don't know what that company is you should turn your PAN card around and you should see where it comes from. That's Protean for you. Protean does a lot of other things as well, and yes, I did lead their IPO communications. I actually joined them just like about 3-4 months before the IPO communications, and it was an amazing journey. It was a great learning for me. Before that, I was with CoinSwitch, which is a crypto company, and I was heading communications for them. Prior to that, I was heading communications for Xiaomi, India, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka, across corporate and product PR across all the brands that they have, which is Xiaomi, Redmi, and Poco. And before that, I was mostly working with agencies. So I worked with some of the most renowned agencies, some of the biggest global agencies that India has, or the world has, in fact, for that matter, which is MSL, and I work with Genesis, Burson, Marsteller. My journey actually started with Genesis, Burson, Marsteller. Now they're called Burson, but I was an ALP with them. I was an associate learning program kid who had joined the company. The company made a lot of efforts into my learning, ensuring that I learned from the right mentors. I also, again, like, I think luck plays a humongous role in all the things that you can potentially achieve in this career. So I think luck was always on my side. So I don't have a chip on the shoulder when I say, oh, I have these achievements, because no, I think, yes, you need to work hard, but a lot of things come to you if you're at the right place during the right time. And if you can let go of the fears and just say yes to everything that's being thrown at you, I think things just start opening up. But having said that, I'm also aware of the fact that I have a bunch of friends in this industry, a lot of people who are much smarter, much wiser, a lot more talented than I am, but they were just not lucky. So, and they're very hardworking as well. So hard work, I think you can't really substitute it, but yes, there are things that just open up for you. So I want to like make that very clear, because my ego loves to hear it, that I was the youngest corporate communications head, but the realist side of me also knows that a lot of silent people supported me. A lot of managers made me who I am today, and it'll be absolutely ridiculous to say that I did it all on my own. That's Yeah.
No, that's very humble of you also, Kasturi, because trust me, I've seen people in this industry who start very early, want to achieve a lot of things, but when the opportunity presents itself, if they don't have the caliber, they won't be able to deliver. And I think you had the caliber, you were able to deliver everything, being at the right place, right time. Those were all like kismat, destiny. But all marks to you, full marks to you for delivering on the mandate that was given to you. Now, the other question is, when someone came to you saying you have to lead a company now, and I think you have launched an IPO, you had comms for several companies before you even turned 30. How did you
Yeah.
deal with really powerful executives who are known in the media, and what kind of support you had? Was there any moment in your career where you felt maybe I've achieved too much too soon, and I want to, it's like a crown of thorns. How did you deal with this situation? Who helped you? What helped you? How did you overcome your own doubts, which most people have? Because, people who have spent like 10 years or 7 years in the industry, they tend to think I should study MBA or branding or marketing, do some uh, course which will help me bridge the gap. But you were kind of taken on a high speed train where you had to change wheels while the train was running. So how did you deal with that?
So I think, first of all, thank you so much for saying all of this. I think I was given the responsibility, handed over the responsibility at the age of 27. I was just, it was very close to my 28th birthday. I still remember. I think I was given the opportunity in the month of August. It unfortunately ended up being in the public eye by, I think, September. But yeah, I was 27 at that time, and I'm 31 today, by the way. No qualms about how old I am. I don't color my hair, by the way, because I want to look older. I wear saris all the time because I want to be taken seriously. It's still, like, by the way, a battle that you need to constantly fight. Ageism is not on the other side of the spectrum, it's also on the younger side of the spectrum. Let me be very, very honest about it. But I think. I think, like what I mentioned previously, right? Silent supporters. How did I even end up getting this role? How did I even end up? I think I might be absolutely wrong about the company's valuation and me being the PR person. I just cannot say the number yet, but I think it's in the tens and thousands of crores is what the company is worth in the country or in the world. And when the responsibility was given to me, I just knew two things. One is that the responsibility, I think, it was passed on by my manager at that time, Ankit Vengulekar. I would like to take his name. Immensely kind and a very, very good boss at the end of the day because he gave me free reins. I joined Xiaomi only as a PR manager. I was product PR manager. I was only heading or leading technically Xiaomi's premium approach to India, and when they were trying to bring in premium smartphones, and they just introduced the first one that they introduced. I still remember, which was my first product launch, was Mi 10, and before that, there was the Mi Mix Alpha, which was a fantastic product that they had launched in the country. So I actually started my journey as Xiaomi was also taking that small pivot, not a pivot really, but I think that was always their long-term strategy. And when I was given this opportunity to head Xiaomi comms, I was just like very underconfident. I don't know. I think there's the imposter syndrome. There's so many other complexes that come into play because I have loved public relations and corporate communications. I genuinely enjoy what I do. I have always enjoyed speaking to media. I've always also been, the thing is that I had that sector expertise. I wouldn't say expertise, but I had that knowledge about the sector as well. So I had been in consumer technology. I'd been working with companies that make consumer technology goods, smartphones, TVs, you name it. So I was very confident that I knew what needed to be done. It's just that I didn't know whether I would be able to lead well or head a team in the first place. So I'm going to take names, by the way, on this show because I think people, whoever is listening to this podcast, whoever is listening and watching this video, should know the kind of people who exist in this industry who always offer help. And a lot of times that inhibit people from growing is because they can't ask for help. It doesn't make you any smaller, by the way. So my agency partners were a blessing. I still remember the person who was heading my account, Radhika Mehta. She told me that, Kasturi, you've been given this opportunity at a very, very young age, and I think you need coaching. And I said, yes, I actually do need coaching. And then suddenly she was like, you know Nikhil, right? Nikhil Day. And I said, yes, I know Nikhil Day. He has been a mentor. Like, I have forced myself for him, like, forced questions on him and asked like so many things to him, forced him to mentor me basically in some way or the other throughout my career, because he was also in Genesis, by the way, when I was there. So I basically then reached out to him and I said, will you please mentor me? And because this is a big role for me, and I think I've never spoken about this to anyone in the past, but that mentorship where he basically coached me to understand my own self, to understand the fact that the leadership in the company had taken a decision to help and chosen me to lead the communications. I needed to believe it first before I get into that imposter syndrome mode and I kind of start feeling like I can't do this and I basically go all over the place. So that was step one. I sought help, I got mentorship. I used to do these calls with Nikhil, even though my life was absolutely fantastically crazy in Xiaomi, but I was working all the time. There's something or the other that was happening, which is what the fun was all about, honestly. I sought help and I got it. And my then boss, Ankit Vengulekar, I was just mentioning him, digressed a bit. He actually told my managing director at that time, Anukumar Jain, who I truly, truly worship, honestly, that why do you even need to hire someone from outside? The person you're looking for is within the company, within the team. And I think somehow or the other, I might have managed to put some kind of good impression on the company that they trusted me with the job. And yeah, I was offered the role. So, like when I say that there have been so many silent supporters throughout, I mean a bunch of people who have constantly, without saying it, without making it evident, have kind of led me in some direction. And there's also one person who I would name at this point, Shri Das. So I was hired as a product PR manager, but for me to learn corporate PR, I think it was all her during the pandemic. I remember um, I had moved to Bangalore recently, and I literally had no place to stay. And she was the kindest person, and she said, "Why don't you come and stay over at my house?" Because I literally had no utensils, nothing to cook my food on, and on the top of it, there's Xiaomi job that I'm having to manage, right? So she's like, "Since you're eating fruits for the last 7 days and surviving on fruits, can you please come to my house? We'll cook together and we'll eat together and we'll figure out a way to work together." And she was at that time at a very, very senior position. She was leading corporate communications, that piece of Xiaomi's communication at that time. And I just benefited from, being with her during the pandemic and just listening to her constantly talking about how does she do corporate PR. I learned a lot from her. So a product PR person suddenly after Shri left the company, which is like keep on saying right place, right time, because Shri left the company. Suddenly the company asked me, "Do you want to head corporate PR for the company?" And I said, "Yes." And then from there, someone else had left, and then they said, "Do you want to take on this charge?" And I said, "Yes." And then that so every time the company kept on asking me, "Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that?" I didn't go back with, "Oh, what are you going to do for me?" I said, "Yes." A hard yes. And one thing led to the other, to the other, to the other. And suddenly, when Ankit, who was the head of communications at Xiaomi India, when he left, they asked me, they just asked me, "Do you want to head the communications piece for Xiaomi India?" And I said, "Yes." So I think I still get goosebumps because the story is so personal, and there's been like a huge journey,
Right.
getting that designation, holding on to that designation, all of that. But uh, yeah, three key points from the whole long answer that I gave you is ask for help, say yes, and most importantly, believe it. When good things are happening to you, just keep on believing that you're worth it. Don't question it, and just play the game.
It's so difficult for people to believe that good things can happen to them, because whenever it happens, it feels like, am I worth it? Is it really happening to me? Because everyone is always expecting all the bad things will happen, and you accept it as a routine incident in your life. And a few things that you mentioned, that apart from being in the right place, right time, you also had the right people around you, and whoever was not around you reached out to them for help. Was there any point where you felt like, I'm asking too much, I'm being clingy, or any kind of feeling that sabotages the self sabotage? How did you manage to avoid that? Or was it happening parallelly and you somehow managed it?
Deep, I felt it all the time. But I think then the PR training comes into the picture, and then you're like, be shameless till you hear a no. So keep
Absolutely.
asking.
Yeah.
If someone's gonna say a no, you're gonna be like, "Okay, next person, I'll ask for help for next person." It's okay. That's how your DNA
Yeah.
is, right? You're gonna be like, "Oh, are
Yeah.
you interested in the story?" If you're not interested in the story, also like, please understand, I'm a hardcore PR person and agency person. I don't consider myself as a corporate communications person. I still feel like I operate in that model. I think that's the only, how do I say, gear shift I have to work like an agency person.
Yeah.
It
You
sometimes
improvise
doesn't
and
work
then
in
you
my
retry.
absolutely, because
Yeah.
you need to
Yeah.
keep trying. It's not
Hmm.
gonna like yeah. So it happened all the time, but that's what
Hmm.
people also were like, yeah, okay, sometimes I think people were like, oh, why is she asking for help? She's figured it out. But I think I reached out to people who I already knew from the past, who I had an experience of working with, who I knew I had good interactions with. So, and I trusted my gut a lot. I spoke to my gut almost all the time. It sounds almost like a little crazy, but I used to genuinely, try and figure out as to what is my inner voice really telling me. Because as you might rightly know, there were
Hmm.
like a really, really interesting kind of situations that came in front of me when I was with Xiaomi. So it meant that I had to fill very, very big shoes that Shri and Ankit had left, right? They're great PR professionals in their own right. So I had to fill those shoes. I had to build confidence with the amazing leadership we had at Xiaomi. I had to build my friendships with the people, peers, who suddenly had seen my growth and change in the company. So there was a lot of stakeholder management, and I was just not doing it for the company, I was doing it for myself as well. So I questioned a lot of times. I had a lot of doubts whether I can do it or not do it. But then, like I told you, help starts coming to you. It's just that you have to be in a mental space where you say, I accept it. And I think in retrospect, I say that my whole life was Xiaomi. Honestly, at that time, I was single, not married, just like so many other things, right? My whole entire life was Xiaomi. So I was able to hold that transition really well, right? And I was able to understand what a head of communications job even takes. Because all my life, when I was on the PR side, agency side, I would be like, oh, corporate communications life is amazing. And what does the client even have to do? And, all of these very kiddish questions that come to you because you're not matured in that industry yet. So, for you to learn the ropes of corporate communications and understand, oh no, like, okay, there's a lot that takes to hold this job, not just get the job, but hold the job. Best learning experience, hands down.
Right. So while you were at the job, just for the listeners also, I must tell Ki it's not only that she was given a responsibility after responsibility, she also performed on them. I think you got cover stories done in almost every magazine. You got long form stories done. You got the company get a lot of awards as well. You also won a lot of awards. You were on the jury as well, and fantastic thing. And then you suddenly switch from a product company, a consumer tech company, to cryptocurrency, and then you jump into NSDL, which is completely finance. Such a departure, and then again a new responsibility of launching an IPO with so many changes happening. Is there a framework that you follow for any new thing that you take up? Because yeah, I understand you require a lot of reading, but even that approach requires structure. So how do you approach it?
I think there is one clear thing that I will like to share with you is that none of the achievements of getting Xiaomi on the cover of Forbes or helping my managing director win Forbes 40 under 40, Global 40 under 40, or any awards that I won for myself, all of that was not just me. It was my team. It was my partners, my agency partners who were constantly working with me. So I think that one core thing is very, very important to always remember. Because you know what happens when you come to the corporate communication side of things is that you forget everyone that's contributing to the cause. There are so many people. Was very blessed with the team. I would like to name all of them honestly at this point because I remember all of them so much, and I still message them, I still talk to them, I still like thank them for being who they were, because my success is not my success. It was a co-owned success. They made me successful. So Mayuri Dahiya, who she was heading corporate communications for, leading it for Xiaomi India at that time. On the product PR side of things, I had Chaya Gandhi, who was leading PR for PR and communications for me, which was the premium side of things. And not just that, she was like heading it for smartphones, laptops, TVs across categories, so on and so forth. On the Redmi side of things, we had Kabir at one point in time, and after him, we had Arushi. She's still with Xiaomi and brilliant at what she does. And just like she's eased in and she took the whole responsibility and she said, I'm going to do it. You don't have to worry. Then I had my very, very supremely important bachas, I think, who kept like the fort together. So there was Prachita, there was Vidushi, there was Abhinav. On the Poco side of things, he was there, and then Medha was there on the Poco side of things. I actually got to work with Yash very closely before Medha joined us. Yash Garg was leading communications for Poco. In Nepal, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. Nepal, there was Prakash. Bangladesh, there was Shumon, and there was on Sri Lanka, there was Vidya, who was helping me so much. So like fundamentally, it was not my success, honestly, and I should not be claiming it. It was everyone's success. But the framework I think that makes sense and that works for any success is that you have to co-own it. Honestly, reading is obvious, it's given. All your skill sets, you'll have to embrace it, right? Media relations supremely important. You cannot leave it only on the agency partner. Sorry, I completely forgot to mention the agency partners who helped us, but Rudafin and team Rudafin, I think three people I really want to call out is Radhika, Ashima, and Anjali Hans. I think some of the, and Soumya. I think four girls who really made a big difference. They all co-owned the success, with me, and they were equally motivated to getting Xiaomi the best kind of placements, the best kind of covers, always being on, talking to people, so on and so forth. And so was my team. So at the end of the day, what I felt would be like all the responsibility would be on my shoulder. They made it so much lighter. And the other framework, I think, in terms of work that I was just starting to talk about when I got distracted again with my PR agency's name, but partner's name, was the fact that you really have to focus on the key skills. If the corporate communicators today believe that media relations is not going to be their task that's important for them, it's not going to work. It is extremely important. As much as it's tough to do, I wouldn't say it is easy. I would say it's tough to do, and hence people don't like to do it. And hence, that's my assumption. However, I think anyone and everyone can say that's not important. But what does media relations even build? It builds media intelligence. It builds a lot of it builds so much more information for you, and in a very competitive industry for that matter, even on other brands, that it can empower you with a lot more that you can potentially think about, right? The second thing I think is very important is that read about your industry. Please, you're supposed to know public relations. You're supposed to know what you're supposed to do in media. You're supposed to have a strategy, and you're supposed to have not just strategy, but to have execution also to the strategy, because we all know execution eats strategy for breakfast. You need to know the industry that you're in. If you don't know about it, then how are you going to recommend anything at all? If you don't know your consumer, who's even buying your product, if you're not working very, very closely with the marketing team to understand how they think, how are you going to align anything? So please spend, I think this is one recommendation that I give to everyone, even PR professionals. I know you have a lot to learn, guys. On the agency side, you have a lot of media relations and everything to build, but please dedicate not much, 30 minutes a day, every day, to read white papers about your industry, to read, and different industries have different KOLs, key opinion leaders. Identify that, figure what their thought process is about that industry, and keep on reading. Over a course of time, you will build the same kind of knowledge that a lot of senior leaders in the company would potentially have, even if they have more amount of experience from you, right? So arm yourself with all of that, and think of it as not burden, but continuously tell yourself that I get to do this. I get to read, I get to learn. So I think yeah, I think these things are very, very important. पीआर तो आना चाहिए बॉस. पीआर तो आपको
Yeah.
उसके
Kasturi,
बारे में
I have a very sensitive question for you. So
प्लीज गो
what
है.
happens whenever our friends, वो थ्री इडियट्स में भी जैसे दिखाए थे कि दोस्त अगर फेल हो जाए तो बुरा लगता है, लेकिन दोस्त अगर टॉप हो जाए तो बहुत बुरा लगता है. How did your friends react to it? And I'm sure, behind everyone's back, people talk about them, and they say nasty things. But one thing that we are all may hear from different sources or people or friend circle is that ki, oh, she must be very good with say I don't want to say ass licking or boot licking. Yeah, what would be a
Yeah, of
saner?
course. Oh,
What would
and
be
as a
a
woman, by
decent
the way,
word?
you get to hear a lot of other things. Huh? By the way, let me just come
Hmm,
in
hmm.
between and tell you that it's not just like you're good in the good books of the bosses.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Very, very problematic things can be said about you,
Hmm,
and
hmm,
I think that's one of the learnings that comes with you being in the leadership position. I mean, I wouldn't say
hmm.
leadership position, because whatever, like just uh,
Yeah,
it was just a position.
yeah.
But I think that's one of the learnings that you need
Hmm,
to understand. And I think that's the beauty about it. I learned during that time that
Hmm.
more people wanted to be friends with me. More people wanted to be my flatmate or whatever because they wanted to use information. They wanted to
Hmm.
use information, they wanted to keep information, they wanted to use it against me or gather it, whatever it is, right? So, and I was also communicating on some of the most critical aspects of the company at that time and the business. Whether I like it or not, I had too much critical information.
Hmm. Hmm.
Absolute silence about it was very important. So then people try and breach that personal space to
Hmm.
be
Hmm.
able to
Hmm.
get that information from you. So
Yeah.
the question is that what do you do in that situation? The answer is very simple. I was not the wisest one in Xiaomi, I think, and there's no qualm about accepting that I failed. I did a lot of times. But you go back to the friendships who know you before you were anything. That's the core. That's the key. That worked for me.
Hmm. Hmm.
You go back to the friendships. You go back to the people who supported you before you held any title or tag. That's the game changer because they know the core of you. They want to be there for you. They are happy for you for your growth, or maybe they're not happy. Doesn't matter. But you found solace in them and you found everything in them when you were nothing. So I think that I again learned from people who had experienced success in the past. And I think we undervalue the importance of a manager. I was extremely lucky, extremely to have Manu Kumar Jain as my manager. I can't even believe that I sometimes say it. I think I still wear it as like a badge of honor. That I had such a fantastic boss with whom I was very, very honest. And I think he made that space also. And I sometimes, jokingly talk about this to my husband and my mother, and I tell them that how will I work with anyone else now? Like, how does it even make sense? Like, how will I work with someone else? Like, you know, what to do now? Like, so because he made that space, he gave that opportunity. He let me talk about things that I was scared about. Like, for a managing director of the company, I am talking about PR responsibilities I had. He had responsibility of the whole company and everything. For him to still take out time, and I would say, "Sir, I have 50 line items. Which one should I focus on?" And he would just smile and he would be like, "Okay, this is P1, this is P0, this is P2, this is P1, this is P0." That gave me so much comfort. I had direction. I knew that I had to run. I knew that I had to work hard. But there was a Partha Sarthi who was leading. And sorry, I shouldn't call myself Parth. I'm not Arjun or anything, but like I had someone who was leading me and who made me feel like my work was not useless, and who made me feel that it was important. Whatever I was doing was important. So I think I drew a lot of power from there. And of course, I'm sorry, give a little long-winded answers because I'm in the habit of explaining everything in detail. Please feel free to cut whatever you don't want to use. It's fine, and please maintain this if you want to
No,
because
no,
I'm
no.
being
This is all
absolutely
good.
candid. Yeah.
It's just that when you're
I,
talking, I get so many questions in my mind. So, for example, you said, Manu gave you a lot of space, he gave you direction, but many people don't have that space, don't have the direction. They're
Hmm.
expected to make the lives of their bosses easier and or
Yep.
the leadership easier, come up with suggestions. They don't have the liberty of saying, can you guide me? Because that is taken like you don't know your work. What kind of advice will you give to such people who are in a situation like that?
Please learn your craft. You cannot go back to your boss saying कि मुझे नहीं पता आपको मैं PR में क्या बताने वाली हूँ. You should always be prepared with an answer. That is not the
Hmm.
kind of support I was talking about. No, I would say
Hmm.
you should know your craft. That's number one. I think I mentioned that before as well. You have to know your art. But then, if you don't know your craft, if you have questions about your craft, because also like you're not an encyclopedia, you don't have every answer, right? So then go back to industry peers. That's what I keep on seeking help, discuss about things with people. You have so many forums. Corporate communicators have a forum called ICG. PR professionals have so many forums. Honestly, like I sometimes compare, how journalism and PR works. In fact, I was listening to one of the people who was speaking at PR Hub discussion very recently, Rahul. He used to be with CNBC. He was saying that in PR you get so much support versus journalism where everything has to be hush hush. If you have a story, if you have a very big one, you cannot share it with anyone. You can't seek any help. But sorry, boss, PR doesn't work like that. People are more than happy to help with knowledge. You just have to seek it again. I'm sorry, I'm sounding like a broken record, but you should have mentors. If you've not built mentors, you're not doing yourself a favor. You should actively seek mentors who you think know their job really well. I have a lot of mentors in the industry, और वो मुझे मदद करना चाहे या नहीं करना चाहे, मैं तो उनसे पूछ लेती हूँ क्योंकि क्या है, अगेन गोइंग बैक टू द प्रिंसिपल, क्या बोलेंगे, नहीं बोलेंगे, नहीं बोलेंगे, विल नॉट हेल्प, next person will help, someone will help. So, but
Exactly.
that is
I
not
think
an option today. Yes.
one more reason is when people are invited to networking events or they have the opportunity to network, they don't seem to have the right answer. Everything boils down to ki, if you have a job in your agency, your company, take me there. But why should anyone take you there? What are the right questions just to help people with their dialogues, their content, or what they should ask when they are reaching out to a senior professional for guidance?
I think one is that you should be very curious. We PR professionals, all of us, right? Corporate communications, PR professionals who are working in the agency, everyone, we have a habit of telling constant, talking more than listening. And it's a
Exactly. Yeah,
very,
that's a challenge.
so
Yeah.
yeah, fundamentally, I think as PR professionals, we like to talk about our client, myself, what I've done, blah, 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 blah. Please understand, hearing is a very big part of communications.
Mm.
Very important. So, the kind of questions that you can ask to a mentor when you're interacting with them, or you're potentially talking to someone who you admire, tell them, I really admire your work for X, Y, Z reason. Proof points. Build your proof points. Go and tell them one, two, three reasons why I really admire your work. I would love to talk to you about my profession, my career. But before I get into that, I want to know about what are you doing these days? How are things going for you? Simple. How do you make communication? How do you make conversation with the journalist? You have to go back and talk to them about something that's relevant to them. That's how we'll gauge your interest. That's how you gauge the interest of the journalist, right? And that's how you gauge their interest in, or understand their interest in your client, in your work, or whatever it is that use the same principles. It's not difficult. And sorry, I'm not dismissing any of this, but I'm saying we are in communications. It is something that we have to do. And I had a very very close friend of mine in Genesis, when we had started on, and Malika Pal, she's now with UK. She's in the UK, and we were very close friends. And we would always like laugh about the fact that, oh my God, we make so many plans for our clients. We make so many plans, and relationship building meeting tracker. And like, we used to run this thing called the journalist adoption program. I don't know why was it called that, but fundamentally, how do you talk to more journalists and how do you get them more interested in your brand? You, as a PR professional, you're maintaining all of that. Do you maintain any of that for yourself? It's a very important question. All your target audience you can define, all the strategy you can make, all the channels of communication you can identify, all the key messages you know how to drive, you know how to measure also whether a campaign has done well or not, and you're not doing that for yourself.
You would
How?
be surprised. So many journalists have told me that people reach out to them only when there is a press release or a pitch or an RBM request. But none of the other times. For example, even for a normal Happy New Year, seasonal greetings, all those things, they don't cross. Or even if they do, it's a forwarded message which sounds so transactional and artificial. It just defeats the purpose of having a connection. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I have
There's no
one last
intent now.
question. Yeah, I have one last question
Yes.
for you. Is you've launched an IPO in a situation where there were very few IPOs comms to take reference from. How did you approach it? And in the coming months, there will be several more IPOs because economy is doing better. And what strategy should comms people or PR people should adopt for devising their IPO communication strategy?
Sure. I think initial public offering is probably the most important marquee milestone that will ever come in a company's life. Your task as a public relations person is very, very strongly cut out, honestly. Like, but it depends from company to company. The company that I was doing an IPO for, please understand that every communication like is supposed to be customized for the company. Every IPO also works that way. So for NSDL eGov, which is now known as Protean, most of the things were already defined in terms of what the strategy should be like, because there are much, much bigger forces, much above my pay grade or anyone's pay grade, that are determining as to how things should be positioned, how things need to be positioned. So then, for me at least, I'll be completely honest. I don't even want to lie about it. My core thing at that time for IPO was to ensure that the execution is happening to the T. Every piece of things that you were deciding, and in an IPO, please help. I should also clarify, it's not just media that you have to manage. You have to also look at, there's a certain IPO budget that gets approved, like every campaign, and you have to manage every piece of communication around it, because there are very, very strong guidelines. So how you read your work contract with your employer very closely, please know all rules and regulations that are associated with IPO. I cannot take 2 minutes to answer how many rules and regulations. It'll probably take like a 1 hour episode after this to talk about them. But please know everything's very, very tightly bound. But, and rightly so, by the watchdogs that are taking care of the customer interest. At the end of the day, it's important that the investors' interests are absolutely protected, right? So keep that in mind constantly. And the rules of IPO communications are not very different. You have to understand where your potential investors can be. There is something called a DRHP, which is draft red herring prospectus. Please read that. It is going to be a really large one, but you need to really know it by heart before you're going in front of media or in front of anyone to talk about IPO. Then there is a RHP that gets approved by the watchdogs, and hence it gets approved, and it's called the red herring prospectus, that you have to also learn by heart and know what are the changes that happened between DRHP and RHP to ensure that you're not communicating anything wrong in the media. The playbook is actually not very different from how a lot of launches happen. It's just that the smaller nuances that you need to take care of, right? Because over here you're talking to people who understand the business really well, or probably don't understand the business really well. So you have to work with both sides of the media side of things, right? So people who would know your business really well, they will urge you to speak a lot of things which might end up looking forward looking, but again, as per one of the rules and regulations, no forward looking statements, please. There is no harm in saying, sorry, this seems to be a question that would be a forward looking question. Let me reiterate what the company stands for and what the company has done in the past, so on and so forth. I'll do like a separate masterclass at the end, but like whatever the quick things that are coming to my head, I think I'm just sharing those across with you. You will be going to some very interesting markets for your IPO press communications, and they are not people, is necessarily not people who are Delhi, Bangalore, Bombay. So be very careful of knowing what the cultural sensitivities are. Be very clear. For example, a very small, very quick learning I had, for example, is that when we were going for the IPO, India was playing a match. And I'm like, wait, why are the investors so distracted? Wait, like, I'm just like looking around in the room. You have to think on your feet, Dheer. I realized that shit, it's India's last over of batting. No one's going to be interested in what my person is showing, because the reality is, as much as your company is doing great and is doing fantastic things, people are on their phone and they are waiting for the final over to be done, and they want to know how much India scored. Did India win the match or not? Can you be brave enough to go and tell your CEO that, sir, I think we need to wait for 30, 40 minutes more. Let some of the overs get over. and then we start the press conference. I had the guts to
Exactly.
do that.
Sometimes we are so focused on getting our thing out of the way that we forget in the macro scheme of things, there are other things distracting or occupying people's brain or mind space. And yes, it does require a lot of courage to walk up to the CEO and ask them to reschedule, postpone, delay their own engagement. And then because it has a cascading effect, CEOs are very busy people, they have to take care of a lot of stakeholders.
Absolutely.
And yeah,
I
any
did that.
quick.
He understood.
Hmm.
And we had a great press conference. Everyone paid attention. Thankfully, India had won. So I also asked him to address that in the press conference and say, congratulate everyone.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's the thing. So in IPO communications, things don't really change. It's just that the rules and regulations are extremely tight. You need to work with the BRLMs very, very closely, banking manager relationship partners, the ones who are managing the banking relationships basically on your behalf. All of those people, you need to know your stakeholders. You need to learn about it. There's no course that you have to do separately. Please call people who have done IPO before. Please call me. Anyone who's listening to this podcast, if you need help with IPO communications, I am at Kasturi Paladi on LinkedIn. Drop me a message. I will help you. I promise you. And if I don't, you can complain to Dheer and he will tell me. So that I want to like clear out here. And it's not rocket science. It's very easy. It's just that yeah, you need to constantly watch as to where you're going, because the rules are tighter. Like campaigns, I think certain things can still go out of hand and you can say, oh, Murphy's law and this and that. You don't have that chance in mind.
Kasuri, it was a pleasure speaking with you. Such a range of topics that we cover, and still it feels like we haven't spoken about everything, and there is still so much to discuss. I'm sure we'll have you back on the show, and I wish you all the best for the next innings of your life. And I wish all our listeners also to reach out to Kasturi if you have any questions regarding your career, regarding your life, or whatever it is that you need help with. Thank you, Kasturi, for being on this show. Pleasure having
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much. It was a great honor. Thank you.